Welcome to the Nightly Talk with your host, Nicholas. Hey, good to be back, folks. So, tonight we're going to extend last night's podcast about the job exodus, and we're going to touch a little more on the non-entry level positions and why people are leaving. Reading a few stories and digging a little deeper, we've come across some other information that really might bring to light what's going on in the workforce. So what we're really seeing here with the non-entry level positions is a number of things, and so being that, we're going to touch on about 3 or 4, maybe 5 different reasons why people are leaving these career positions to do other things. So number one, I think what you're seeing is people are leaving for a lot of reasons. Number one, they can spend more time with their kids and family working from home. You know, I read a story where a guy said that, you know, he during the pandemic, he was back at home and he was spending time with his kids working from home, and then when his employer called and started bringing people back to the office, he wasn't sure he wanted to make that 45-minute commute anymore, and he didn't. He chose to look for another position where he could work from home and spend more time with his family, and I get it. What has happened is this pandemic has caused people to open their eyes a little bit and instead of wanting to work 50 and 60 hours a week, they're wanting to work 40 hours a week, or maybe they're working the 50 hours a week, but they're spreading it out over 5 and 6, 7 days, where they're spending more time with their kids in this crazy world we live in now. I mean, if you look at all the things that are happening in schools with CRT and a lot of stuff like over in Virginia, where there was an issue with a kid, you know, being raped. You know, parents are starting to realize that maybe the most important thing wasn't working all these hours in the first place. That yes, they still need to pay bills, but spending some quality time with their kids and actually raising them and creating that family environment became more important. And then they realized when these companies started calling people back to the office that, hey, maybe that's not something I want to do anymore. You know, they feel more comfortable being with their family at home, raising their children, and not spending 50 hours or 60 hours a week in a cubicle. I don't think that's crazy. I think people are realizing that when you look at other countries throughout the world, Americans work more than any other country anywhere else. We put in more hours working than any other country in the world, which is, I don't know that it's crazy. I don't know that it's insane, but I will say that I think that we drive ourselves in our career positions to be the best we can be. Sometimes we stay doing something we don't even like to do, and it takes us 15 years to realize that. You know, the other is they're not as reluctant to leave a job they don't like anymore. With the abundance of jobs out there, people are leaving their jobs and going, wait a minute, maybe I don't need to take the first offer anymore because there's such an abundance of jobs. Maybe I find something I like to do, or something that's more flexible, that works around my needs and my hours, and I can still perform and do this job, but maybe I'm not gonna dedicate 50 and 60 hours a week to it like I did 5 years ago. You know, and I think one of the other things that's helping that along, and I don't know that this is the biggest push, but it definitely plays a role. But vaccines. A lot of these non-entry level position companies are mandating vaccines now, um, and in doing so, their employees are like, well, wait a minute. Why don't I just find a position where I can work from home? And I think that's the big flag here that says that really speaks to what's going on is people realize they really enjoy working from home. I think that's uh, the big issue with people returning to the cubicle, returning to the office, and spending these long hours and these long days into the nights, weekends, where they're missing time with Johnny who plays baseball on Saturday, and they realize, man, maybe I can spend that time with Johnny now and watch him play a game as we start to roll things and open things back up. Dads and moms both are going, maybe I don't need to spend 50 hours a week anymore. And some of these people are leaving and just going back to school to get a degree in a field that they really enjoy. I think what you're seeing is a combination of I don't I ended up in a position I didn't really want because it paid really well, but I had to dedicate so much time to this that I missed little Johnny or little Annie growing up, and now it's made me realize that maybe the money's not so important. Maybe my child is more important, and not that they never thought their child wasn't important. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is we get sucked into focusing so much on providing for our children with with monetary reasons, that we forget about the quality time that we need to be spending with them to teach them how to become an adult. How to deal with things that they're going to have to deal with in their lives. Making hard decisions, and sometimes the hard decision isn't always the best feeling decision, and sitting down and having that conversation with them versus going to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and not getting home till 9, 10 o'clock at night. People are starting to realize that maybe my family time is just a little more important than making sure I drive that brand new truck or getting that brand new truck every year. Americans also feel there's more opportunity and better pay options for them now. Some of the issue is also people returning to work. They fear of returning to an unsafe work environment. With COVID and the Delta variant, and you hear so many things with this fear mongering about this and that. And again, I'm not saying COVID's not the real deal. It definitely is. It's definitely taken some lives. It's a real disease. It kills people, and I think that our government has pushed the vaccine and the fear mongering so much it's scared people from returning to work. Man, what if I go back to work? I just seen this 40-year-old guy that had COVID and he didn't have any underlying health conditions and he died from it last week, and I've got kids to raise. And I think there's a lot of things that are weighing on people's minds about how much time they're really spending in their career. And I think that's the big exodus you see here, is that people are choosing their family over the cubicle. And I can't disagree with that choice. I know that given the opportunity, I would definitely spend more time with my family. And I try my best, but I think that's what you're seeing here is some people just want to work 40 hours a week now, so they've got that extra time with their family. They're also looking at how much their employer really values them. Not even 5 years ago, 2 years ago, being valued by your employer was important, but doing a good job was more important. To be valued, you felt like you had to earn that value from your employer, and I don't know that you ever really felt valued. I can tell you I worked I've worked a couple different positions in my lifetime, and probably out of all of them, I've only ever felt valued at one, um, that I can really think of off the top of my head. And I knew that by not by the vacation time they gave me, not by any free stuff they gave me, but how understanding they were to my situation when I needed certain time off to spend with my family. And I think that's what you're seeing is people are looking at these employers going, do you value my time and my employment as much as I do, or as much as I value my family? And I think that's what employers need to look at, is how flexible they can be in order to bring people back. If you don't want to pay the higher rate, and thinking about that, I almost say that people would work for the same amount or less if their employer valued their time as much as they value their family time. Meaning, is there a way we can accommodate your time so that you can still be productive in your position with us, but also still be productive in the family time you're spending at home? And I think I think that's probably the biggest key factor here, and what's playing on why people are leaving the positions they're leaving that are not entry level. It's not the pay. I'm going to say it's more about how much they're valued by their employer and how much they've realized they value their own time. If you think about the one guy I read about, a 45-minute commute to work and a 45-minute commute home, that's, an hour and a half, and then work another 10 hours on top of that. There you are at 12 hours of your day gone, and there's only 24 hours. You got to sleep 8 of those hours or less. In my case, much less, 5 hours a day. So, but by the time you get up in the morning, and you shower and commute 45 minutes to work, and then work 10 hours, and then 45 minutes home, it's 9 o'clock and the kids are in bed. So you don't see them 5 days a week. In my case, it's very much similar to that. We wake up early, everybody's rushing around, getting ready to do their thing, go to school, get ready for work. We see everybody, we hug and kiss, and hey, I love you, and I'll see you tonight. And then by the time we get back home, it's, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, and then it's time for bed. So 5 days a week, you don't even get to see your kids. And 2 days of the week, is one of your days off? Does that coincide with your kids being out of school? In most cases, it doesn't. Some cases, some of the non-entry level positions, a majority of them, I would gander to say that a majority of non-entry level positions are off on the weekends. So you get that 2 days a week. But I would say probably 40% of those non-entry level positions require working on the weekends, as in my case. So, it's just really, I think that's digging deeper and taking a look at that. There's a combination of things of why there's shortages in everything from non-entry level positions, especially, anything that's outside of healthcare. If we look at healthcare, I think the healthcare field goes back to more of the fear. And I can understand that. I don't know that would be fear mongering. I wouldn't be surprised to see a report come out that says healthcare workers are afraid to go back to work because of COVID. And there might even be one out. I'd have to look it up and do some reading. But I would venture to say that, yep, if I was in the healthcare field, and I'm not, and I know this because I've researched a lot of this. In the beginning of this pandemic, in the healthcare field, they were they were not just short-handed, but they were short on equipment for PPE. And for those of you that don't know, PPE is personal protective equipment. So the PPE they were getting, they were opening the boxes, and a lot of you guys may know, a lot of you may not know, but PPE actually expires. It's only good for so long, and they were opening these boxes of PPE that they were getting from China on short notice, and they were expired. And so they're going, do I wear this expired PPE and walk into this COVID unit and risk taking this home to, in my case, my mom's a double amputee and very susceptible to catching infections. Do I go into this COVID unit and wearing PPE that's expired and then catch COVID and then come out and bring that home, or bring it, even worse, bring it home and she gets it and dies, or bring it home to one of my kids and then you become a super spreader. There's a lot of issues with the PPE, and I think that's why you see the max exodus from the healthcare field. Is I don't know that I do know that reading a lot of the journalistic work on the healthcare field, yes, it has been related to the vaccine requirement, but also fear. Fear of returning to that. Look at the Delta variant. It came on stronger than just COVID-19. It didn't kill as many people, but there's a lot of breakthrough cases. Matter of fact, I was listening to a radio show today where a guy had been double vaccinated, yet had a breakthrough case, and that's locally. So I think that's what you see in the healthcare field, is just the fear of returning to an unsafe environment altogether, and probably one of the less valued employees in the non-entry level is going to be healthcare. I know plenty of nurses that work day in and day out 12, 15, 16 hours a day, and have for a long time. And when this pandemic set in, they were working 20 hours a day and sleeping at the hospital maybe just a few hours, and turning around and working another 10, 12 hours, 15 hours, for days on end, because they were so short-staffed, and then wearing this expired PPE equipment. And maybe it just made them take a look and go, wait a minute. Yes, it's really good money, but is my life or is somebody else's life worth it? And I think the short answer to that is no. I think maybe these hospitals and nursing homes, etc., need to take a good hard look at how much they value their nurses and nurses' aides, and are they providing the correct equipment. Now, I understand nobody could have predicted the pandemic. Nobody could have said, hey, I know in a year from now we're going to need so much PPE equipment that whatever we get is going to be expired. However, they did know 6 months ahead of time there was something going on. They knew back in December of 19 that there was some issues with COVID, and nobody did anything about it. And I think that goes back to how much you value your employees, like your nurses, that they should have stepped up and said, this could become a serious issue. We should probably provide non-expired equipment for our nurses and for our doctors, and but a lot of these hospitals are privately owned, and just like anywhere, they're in it to make money. Do they care about your health? I'm sure to an extent they do. Um, but for the most part, they care about their pocketbook. And that really showed through the pandemic with how much they were ill prepared to take care of their workers on the front line. And I kind of got off topic here, but that just goes back to show how much they didn't value their employees. And it wasn't just an overnight thing. So it wasn't something that just during the pandemic, all of a sudden we don't value our employees. There's always been a crack in the wall that's let a little water through. What happened with the pandemic is it forced the dam to burst, and it really showed these hospitals' true colors, and not just hospitals. So across the board, whether it's insurance work or whatever it is that you might do, it really showed a lot of these employees how much they were disvalued. A lot of these companies were disingenuous with the things that they were doing to take care of their employees. It became an issue when we realized that we couldn't get PPE, and not even just at hospitals. We're talking about just masks, simple masks and gloves. For the longest time, you could get a box of those paper masks, which have about 50 masks in it, for like $3. Now, it's like $20. Same thing with the nitrile gloves. You could used to get a box of those nitrile gloves with 100 gloves in a box, was about $4. Now they're like $25. Obviously, there's somebody there making money, but it just goes to show that a lot of these places should have or were ill prepared and shouldn't have been. Now, I understand places like insurance companies and IT techs and stuff. No, they're not going to have PPE on hand because, again, that goes back to me saying that nobody could really predict that this pandemic was going to be a pandemic. However, 3 to 6 months before it began, maybe these companies should have made an effort to say maybe we should do something here, and being short-sighted like that with what they did, the old saying rings true that hindsight's 20/20. So looking to the future, maybe a lot of these companies now will step up to the plate and say maybe we should look at securing certain types of PPE on a regular basis. And they are now, just because the pandemic is still here. It hasn't gone away. It's just lessened its effect. But overall, I think that, is this the last one? We've had this one. So, back in, I think it was 1918, the Spanish flu ravaged, the world. And it was a very long time, 2019, before something like that reared its head again. But now they're talking about, in the news, a double pandemic. They're talking about the flu this year is going to be really, really bad, and they're already starting to see some really severe cases. Is that something we prepare for now? I think it is. I think it's a step we should take. I'm not a big pusher of the vaccine. I'm not a big pusher of a mask. If you want to wear a mask, fine. If you don't want to wear a mask, fine. I will say this. Over the last 16 months since I've started wearing a mask, I've probably been the least sick I've ever been in the last 15 years. Generally, I always get something like bronchitis or Maybe once a couple years I get the flu or some. But wearing a mask, I can honestly say I've not been sick. And I have been tested for COVID many times, always negative. I think there's something there with the antibodies that some of us have, some of us don't naturally. But I can say by wearing a mask, I, I, I feel that I've been less sick than I have in the past. Now, could that be a placebo to wearing the mask? Sure, sure. That is an argument, a valid argument that could be made. Um, but then again, on the other side of that, could it be true? Sure, I think it could be true. So I mean, there is something there to that, but again, it just goes back to the healthcare field and the PPE and things these companies how they value their employees' time and the employees are leaving because they don't feel valued or they want to spend more time with their family. So I think that's really where we got with this story is just really digging in, and that's what we found. But going to be moving on to another story tonight. We're going to take a look at. So another story we're going to touch on tonight is obviously the supply chain crisis we have right now. So there's a lot going on with that, with container ships sitting out in the ocean off the coast of California. I touched a little bit on this yesterday. I didn't really get in depth with it. Kind of ran out of time. But I'll touch on it a little bit tonight. Obviously, Biden has said that the port in Los Angeles is going to start working 24/7 to offload these containers to get the supply chain moving. I'm not sure if he's aware. Probably not. Good old Monkey Joe. I know they let him out of his cage for a little bit today. And it amazes me sometimes listening to his thoughts when he speaks on how he thinks things work. So what I mean by that is, even if the port runs 24/7, that's fine. We've moved the cargo from water to land. Now the problem is with logistics, not just from the container ship to the land, but America has seen the largest shortage of truck drivers ever in history. And it's somewhere around 60,500 drivers short in the United States right now. That's a tremendous number. I don't know, and I probably should have done a little more research on this before talking about it, but I didn't. But I do know that it's 60,500 drivers that were short in the United States, and so moving the cargo from the water to the land does absolutely nothing, and I don't think he realizes that. Maybe he has a magic wand that he will wave and move all of this cargo onto semis to disperse it throughout the United States. However, his wand is broken, or he would have fixed his administration a long time ago. With that being said, I'm curious to know what his plan is to get this stuff moving. I don't know if he realizes that with the shortage of truck drivers, that cargo essentially is going to sit there in the port. So now it's not outside of the port, it's in the port and not going to go anywhere. There's been, and I don't know how many of you follow Twitter, I'm sure a lot of you do, but the supply chain's broken. It's broken. Inflation's the highest it's ever been. Gas prices are the highest it's been in the last 8-9 years. I don't know if he's taken a look around, but if you go into a Walmart or a Costco or a Sam's Club, these shelves are pretty bare. Um, and I don't know what his plan is to get that cargo moving logistically when there's no truck drivers to move it. And it goes back to my original story with people leaving um, for better work. I think a lot of these over the road truck drivers have realized that, man, I'm spending 2 to 3 weeks on the road and I'm home a week, and then I'm 2 to 3 weeks on the road and I'm home a week. I think those days are over. And I think you're going to continue to see a decline in the CDL sector with over the road trucking. I would liken it to, a walkout, because family has become more important over the last year and a half. And a lot of these over the road truckers are gone 2, 3 weeks, sometimes a month, hauling cargo, and definitely probably one of the least appreciative sectors of business, I would say, would be the trucking company. They definitely don't value their employees. There's never really been any real benefits for a truck driver other than you're going to work 3 weeks on and you're going to be off a week. That sounds great in theory until you haven't seen your family for almost a month. Think about how much stuff happens in a month's time, how much a child grows, learns in a month's time. They're gonna have to. There's gonna have to be something different to move this freight, and I don't know the answer. I don't know that there's a clear answer for that. I think that it's broken. We know it's broken, and I don't know that there's going to be a quick fix for that. I believe this may continue for a year, maybe more. We know it's going to last through the holiday season. A lot of these companies have already put out statements that, hey, those toys you want for Johnny and Ann this year, we don't know if you're going to be able to get them. I'm having trouble getting podcast equipment from Amazon. I could imagine with the... So the problem is we take a story as the media and we, like inflation, inflate the story so much that people freak out and start buying things up. We've seen it happen with toilet paper and other household goods, cleaning products, and now it's with these stories out. People are going to be rushing out everywhere, shopping early to buy all this stuff, whether it's online or from a store, and you're going to have a really tough time buying Christmas for kids this year. Us as parents, we don't really care. We don't care about gifts. I think me and my wife, we buy each other one gift, if that, every year, and we kind of move past it and have dinner. And I mostly enjoy it for my kids, as she does too. So I think what you're going to see, though, is this crazy madness of people buying up all these toys, and maybe that's the plan. Maybe these companies have put this out to increase their profits. I doubt it. We do know that there's cargo ships that are off the port of Los Angeles. They're trying to get them unloaded. But until you actually look at how massive these cargo ships is, I wish I knew how long it took to unload just one. Because a lot of these cargo ships, these are, if you look at those boxes on those cargo ships, those boxes are actually semi trailers without wheels. So I think they're around 42 foot long, and I think those cargo ships are 40 containers wide. Okay, by God knows how long. Let me see if I can look that up. I'm curious to know how long it would take. How many containers? Here we go. So, let's see. So around 21,000. Let's see. What is this? So, man, that's a lot of containers. If you could see this picture I'm looking at, they're massive. And these companies, so in service they have 9,535 of ships of these ships that are in service. Let's see. So, holy moly. Okay, so it carries a massive amount of these. It carries 21,000 containers on each ship. On each cargo ship, there's 21,000 containers. That is an astronomical amount of containers. Now, wow, that's just so much. Okay, so it's a 20-foot shipping container. So it's 20 foot by 8 foot by 8 foot. Its total capacity is 1,360 foot. So you multiply that by 21,413. What is that? 21,413 times 1,360. That's a massive number. 21,413 times 1,360. That's 29,121,680 square feet of cargo on one ship. So I don't know what old Joe Monkey Biden plans on doing, but that's a monumental task to move for one ship. That's just one ship to move from throughout the United States. And we have, I don't know, on the verge of, I think, 20 or 30 of those ships out there. So anyway, that's going to end our podcast for tonight. Thank you all for listening. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and that like button, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Have a good evening.